Hey guys, this is Oakley and we're going to be playing a 2v2 in Napoleon Total War. This is going to be on the battlefield of Ligny. Very interesting map with a ton of buildings in the structure. The map is itself going to be divided by a river. This makes for these awesome kind of urban combat scenarios. And usually there's a lot of artillery flying back and forth, but this battle in particular was it had rules of no artillery, so that means we have to rush into position almost immediately. So that is exactly what I'm doing. So most of my troops are going to be shifting over to this front. I have militia units, I have skirmishers, I have cavalry, all of these units pushing out here. We just wanted to make sure we seize this. The English, the British, and the French are in alliance against the Austrian and Prussian forces, so they were trying to push past this little area here. Looks like we've seized the initiative. We're now going to be starting to pile on into these structures. This allows us to get suppressive fire on the enemy. I'm also going to be pushing forward with a ton of men, so I have moved up to the enemy bank here. You can see a lot of the Swiss foot forming up, but now they sent some cavalry to punish us. I have some of my own cavalry being thrown into the mix, but that is going to be a mess. In close support, what's really cool that you can do is position units on the other opposing riverbank. So while that action is getting underway, you can see a ton of forces pouring into there from the French. They are really not wanting me to plant that Austrian flag on the other side of the riverbank. So they're going to be pouring in a lot of units. But he may be putting a lot of his guys up front. Look how I'm mowing down those cavalry. So that was good for me. His units were going to try and do a surrounding field of fire on me, but I brought up enough units to ward these chasseurs off. So this is going pretty well, I would say. I was able to kill his cavalry. You'll notice I threw 3 units into the fight. A Grenzer force, which is depleted to half strength, an infantry unit, and a cavalry unit. So my infantry unit has been shredded. It is now gone. Grenzers are half alive, and my cavalry unit is basically exhausted. My opponent had thrown 2 units into the mix. They're almost dead. But what this did gain me is a slight advantage. His old guard are now somewhat in range of my units, and some of his guys that were targeting my blob in the center has taken early fire from my units. So on the balance sheet, I would say I'm doing pretty well. And then on this front here, the French are positioning themselves up, but like I said, this map is cool because you can get a lot of surrounding fire. I had put up some of my Prussian militia units just to try and put pressure on this force, chipped away a couple of their units, but for the most part now we're going to be drawing in with our Grenzers. The Silesian Scheitzen are very good skirmishers with extreme range, so they're going to help us tear it up on this flank. I have some of my own elite Jaegers who can help turn this flank, so that should be good for us. But the massacre continues over at the front. The French are pulling back. These are a lot of young guards, so very elite troops, but I have superior numbers. And there is a slight hill like I showed you here, so he can retreat out of the line of fire. Anytime I try and make a river crossing, he can dash up here, take some pot shots. But I have all my guys lined on the top of the hill, so the second he exposes himself, I'm going to be able to do punishing fire. And then over here, because he pulled back, he is at a numerical inferiority. So he's got some young guards, but with my Grenzers who excel at extreme range, I'm going to be picking him apart. I do have a Hungarian Fusilier unit that's firing at him, and then I'm going to be shuffling over some of my Hungarian units. My opponent's going to be doing the same thing with some of these awesomely colored Guard Seaman troops and Swiss foot. So he's going to continue to try and outflank me. So I'm going to be shuffling units over to that extreme flank to do the same thing as well. His young guard, however, is suffering badly in that engagement. On this flank, they're being mauled by our overwhelming skirmisher fire. I even had some of my militia units drawn up, and on the side of this hill, we could get a lot of overlapping fire. So militia units to draw enemy fire, and then Jaegers on the top who are here still at 60 health. And look at those French lines. So they're going to be pulling in more guys to perhaps try and beat us back. But with this building here, with excellent, firing arcs, we should be able to even put some pressure on those young guards. So I'm going to pull out my Jaegers, knowing that I don't want to waste them. And I'm going to pull in some of my Grenzers. Took a couple early volleys, but now we can return with interest the initial fire. So there that goes, and that chasseur unit is eating it. The entire young guard unit is going to unleash on my militia. That's okay. That's what militia is for. And then over here, The balance is going pretty well. I pulled back some of my units just to the point where he was out of range, and so I'm kind of taunting him. But meanwhile, my skirmishers have more range, so I can take his younger out. So that is a nice trade, and I'm going to be pulling more guys in because I know that, okay, we beat back his chasseurs, so he's kind of yielded this position. He's pulled back behind the hill, so this is going to be an opportunity for me to try and push aggressively into that gap. If we follow the rest of the fight, it's a bit more quiet. We're actually able to push out and seize the farmhouse. We took a couple casualties moving up into that position. This is crucial. This is forcing the British back behind the ridgeline. And the rest of the front is pretty quiet. We have still a lot of reserves. So we've seized the town, which is awesome. And here is where most of the battle is going to be developing, on these open flats. And like I told you, once you get local superiority along the riverbank, there's this dead zone that develops. And that is going to be enough breathing room to now charge across the center. So we can watch as my guys are going to start to rally themselves. I mean, tight column formations, which would not be good if there was suppressing fire or artillery coming in. But I've been able to buy myself a little bit of breathing room, like I said. So here we go. We're going to be pushing up. In the distance, we're going to be continuing to see the murderous fire over at the river bend. Look like some of the chasseurs are going to be pulling out. So here come my Hungarians. The combined British and French force is seen in the distance. Now the enemy is going to try and react with everything he's got. First with the cavalry. So I formed up into square, and I really love the rearing up mechanic. So those guys get absolutely slaughtered. However, it is going to be allowing some of his men to get some shots off at me from the top of the hill as they're trying to reform. The hill is giving me some protection, so now I'm going to pull back slightly, hoping to draw his guys into range of my units. So my Jaegers are firing. Oh, and now you saw he got absolutely clipped by these Grenzer units. So the old guard having to get pretty close before they can even get some shots off. So that is not a good use of this type of unit. They excel in, line fire, but when they're being outranged like this, it is not good for them. On top of that, I've tossed in or done a feint with my Hungarian hussars. I feinted on his old guard just to make them stop firing at me, and now I'm charging up on this big open area that we have available here. So my Hungarian hussars are going to be cleaning up the chasseurs, then they're going to charge into the back of this young guard unit, so overall just causing disruption, and that is going to be more than enough to allow me to start pulling in more units. Cavalry, the Uhlans are lining up. I pulled out my Jaegers. They took 2 losses. I figured that'd be too much for the time being. And my cavalry has continued to ping-pong through his lines. I pulled through with 2 Hungarian Fusiliers, and they are told to just penetrate deep into these lines, and now they're going to reform about these young guard units. So he was, pretty happy double-teaming my 1 Fusilier force. But now Jaegers are going to come back, and let's watch this shot from the flank. That is absolutely brutal. So that force, I penetrated deep into column, and then I deployed into a line, very much in the in the name of Napoleon with that maneuver. And then over here the other one has gone and just absolutely wrecked the young guard force. So now we can put a lot of pressure. On this front, I was starting to dwindle. His Swiss foot was focusing on my guys. However, I combined fire against some of his guard seamen and routed those guys. So always you want to be combining fire like that. So we've completely cleared out this location. Some of the King German Legion light dragoons are circling around. Those guys can be pretty devastating. I think they have the ability to fire, and then they have a pretty good charge as well. So here comes one of the chasseurs à cheval. They're going to be coming into my force here, and I was a little worried, but then I realized, he's not going to engage on this force because it's already committed. And if he wants to take out this light unit here, that's fine. And look at where he's going to position himself. Right in a position where he's stuck against my square, and now it is just going to town on those guys. Another King's German Light Legion was trying to push in, but with the suppressing fire of my Jaegers, that's going to dissuade his unit. And then here, my guys are victorious, and they're going to pull out and retreat through my squares. Infantry are coming in, so always expect an infantry charge to follow a cavalry one. So now we're going to form up back into line. I'm going to use this hill actually to cover my retreat, so I'm pulling out behind the hill. I know he has superior fire with these young guard forces, so I'm going to pull out and try and help push around the flanks until I can get more units to pour up through this position. More Jaegers. The allied musketeers and other units are going to pull in. And now this is where you start to maybe sense weakness in your opponent's force. So the Young Guard are starting to pull out. I think they realize this battle is not going to go in their favor, so more and more units are pulling out. This is where I'm going to tell my guys to all out charge, and this is where we're going to get some of our cavalry. Yep, my Uhlans are lining up, so this is going to be the time where the bugles are sung, and this is where we're going to tell the cavalry to charge out and try and destroy what's left. Going back on this side, not much has happened. So over on this front is where I wanted to show you a little bit of the action going on. The British have deployed in a line holding the river crossing. Our guys were engaging. We would have lost that fight, so what we're going to do is pull back to the top of the hill and just try and play a game of denial where we prevent them from moving forward, but you know, we don't charge all up front, lose our guys, and allow them to move forward. So this is going to be kind of a standing move. The stalemate continues up through the center, and over here where the units are in full out retreat, this is where I've sent my units in pursuit. Looks like this is a desperate crossing. This is the evacuation at Dunkirk almost, where they're leaving this entire position, doing everything they can to get away from my guys. And here is the rabid pursuit. All our forces pouring across, full steam ahead. Cavalry of my allies still held in the back, but my own forces have been sent headlong to try and charge after the Young Guard force. They turned about, but like I said, on the retreat is exactly where cavalry do best. So we're going to smash right through this Young Guard force. 20 men left. This is going to drop precipitously. And there you go. They have broken entirely. Then I'm going to be able to charge through, get the rest of the Swissfoot, make sure that they break and don't come back. There is another unit retreating over here of Swissfoot. I figured it wasn't really worth pursuing them, mostly because they are going to be caught behind enemy lines. As opposed to these forces, had I not destroyed them, they could have probably held me back on this flank. Anyways, moving on this front is going to be part of the path of flanking this main force. Now that we've seized this front, going to pull up with my German Fusiliers. They're going to start returning fire with a thin line of chasseurs who may be able to do well, but again, the Jaegers going to be doing very good once they deploy. These guys, mind you, have more range than the enemy forces. They're a bit more expensive, but when it comes to killing skirmishers, they do excellently. So there you go, the pot shot's going away, and the enemy force, wary of that, is going to be pulling back. You saw I targeted his Young Guard. That's going to be most important. His chasseurs over here are pretty sparse in number, so once I get critical mass, you know, I'm pulling in Archduke Charles legions, and then a couple extra units are moving up. So once I feel like I have this riverbed suppressed, I'm going to pull up with my infantry and charge across, storm that location. What I can also do is start to put pressure on this front, because what I want to do is just suppress this area here, allow me to make a charge across. So my infantry are going to start deploying up, pulling slightly out of range, but all but preparing for an assault. First phase is going to be move forward with my Jaegers. Let's see if they're even in range here. No, but they will be soon. So they're going to start prepping their fire, and then my militiamen on the left are going to be trying to, pull through on the left and doing the same thing. So my militia are charging forward, and they're actually not taking any fire just yet, mostly because the British troops were pulled back behind the ridge. So now I'm going to be able to bait them out of that ridge, hopefully within range of our Grenzers, and yep, looks like that worked perfectly, so baited them in here. Now they're going to be taking fire from our riverbed, and yes, they'll be putting on a lot of fire to our militia, but look at the pressure I put on here. Force his rifles back. This is going to be the time for me to now charge forward. He has one chasseur unit holding strong, but they are caught reloading, so my guys are going to pull right through this force. Told my guys to charge. He's reforming on that flank. What I've done is I've pulled over some of my Uhlans. I have the German Fusiliers pushing this front, and then we have the legions moving forward, and then a couple more scrap units. I have my general, some infantry. He's going to be pushing up, and now it's going to be the assault across the river. So I tied down one of these forces with a single one of my units. I decided not to assault this one. I'm going to send all my infantry over on this flank, knowing that I can get a flank on his incoming Young Guard, and that this force here can be dealt with aptly by our skirmishers. My militia are actually somehow holding forward. I'm not sure how they're able to do that. It could be due to the terrain just blocking the incoming fire. So that is awesome. Grenzers are positioned here to get some flanking shots. I really want to suppress this force. So here comes my flank redeploying. He did break my single force that was meant to tie down his chasseurs, but again, just meant to tie them down. Ooh, and they're unloading on our guys. Just militia units, so nothing to worry about. And now as our guys line up, We're going to unleash on the French, and we played a bit of a game of chicken in terms of deployment. Looks like I won that, and I deployed first. So now it's going to be up to him to blink because I've got more fire coming in. He did, however, send a cavalry force over here, a chasseur à cheval, which took out some of my Uhlans, which is pretty devastating. I was hoping to get them to knock out this force, but infantry will have to do. My ally did send in some of these hussars. Perfect charge. That is going to allow us to pull up the rest of our forces and get nice fire into these blobby squares. Let's go ahead and watch the main engagement actually take place over here. More of the Prussian cavalry forces pushing forward. You wouldn't expect cavalry to play that big of a role in a battle like this with a lot of cities and a lot of choke points, but they are excellent for these type of engagements. Well, cavalry is always good. Obviously, it's going to be better on an open field, but in engagements like this, if you find the utmost perfect moment, it can allow your infantry to position correctly, get some early shots off, and that sets the pace, and it can get the ball rolling for a continued destruction of that force. I mean, look at the cavalry here. We only have a couple units left, 12 horsemen left, but they're going to be disrupting this entire force. So, back to the main front where we had this little bridge crossing. We were being beaten back, but that's because it's Coldstream Guards. But look what they're exchanging with. Those are militia units. They're trading with more militia units, so they're exposing their men needlessly. Meanwhile, our firing position over here has been absolutely devastating. 2 elite skirmishers taking out some of these, Kunagat Rangers, Coldstream Guards. So his numbers are dwindling. We're being super cost effective. And over on this side, where he had some infantry and cavalry charging me, I, dislodged a Hungarian Fusilier unit over to the flank, and it shot up that whole mess. Now my general's going to be given the cue to charge in. So this is pretty much destroyed. Over in the distance, they do have some Swiss foot that came back and rallied, like I was telling you before. So my Grenzers in the back, who were reformed, are going to be the rear guard cleanup action. They're going to be sent to take out those Swiss foot. The general being absolutely suicidal. Now I think he, just bit the dust there. So he goes down in this little charge. It did somewhat save his ally, the rifles. I'm going to throw in my own general, Karl Schwarzenberger. Schwarzenberg. So he's going to be taking out the remainder of this general staff. However, I'm scared. Oh my god, they laid down a punishing volley with the foot. So I pull out of there. Luckily, it didn't kill my entire force, and it actually kind of messed up his plans here. He was hoping to roll up and just shaft my line infantry, but he got off a volley, and then I was able to get out of there without losing my general, which means my units here are not taking suppressive fire, which means they can continue to push up. Killed the general staff, and now I can pull up with the remainder of my units. Unfortunately, this Archduke Charles Legion is almost full strength, but it was taken down by about 10 men just with the last wishes of the general's bodyguard charging me. But this is going well. Right where they devoted a lot of manpower is where they crumbled, and now we send in a couple of our more veteran troops, musketeers. These are your typical line units getting in on the mix, and then the entire time the Schlesien-Schwetzen getting on shots. Finally, the British have decided to get some foot in the mix here. However, we have foot guards and 8th Life Regiment, so we should be cleaning that up pretty successfully. You can see the morale is in our favor. General staff for us is nearby, so he's going to be able to rally some of our units. So the battle is all but ours and all but won on this flank. The remainder of the lines here have somewhat been tied down, but I decided to charge in with my German Fusiliers. This is going to break up his entire force here. That's going to be the cue for my Archduke's Charles Legions, and I really love the elite, uniquely named units in Napoleon. They're really cool. Hoping we see a bit more of that in the future. Concentrating fire on the Coldstream Guards, and these guys are beautiful units, but they're not elite enough to hold back that type of engagement. Hussars breaking through the enemy force, my general breaking through. So like I was telling you, cavalry is excellent, but it's mostly used for key moments. Usually towards the end of these battles, right when you're forcing your opponent to reform, that's when you want to unleash your cav and kind of clean up, cause disruption, and then also when you're trying to force a bridgehead. So that allowed us to clean up this entire front. There are still some remaining guys, which are going to be on this position, right where I told you we were kind of planning to just hold them back. So the British, knowing that their left flank has completely been destroyed and our guys are going to be swarming around that flank, are going to be trying to push forward. Looks like they want to finally contest this crossing. Perhaps they know it is a futile goal, but they're going to be going out in a blaze of glory nonetheless. So now our musketeers, a single line, so not much left, but this is going to be enough to get maximum firepower unloaded on those guys. So let's watch. Oof. Oh my god. So they're still forming up. Looks like cavalry is going to be thrown in the mix. So let's watch these as the British try and line up. This is definitely desperate straits. So they go charging up the hill. We do have enough men to form up into square. And yes, it was in time. So his guys are going to be rearing up. And now we have Slates and Scheutzen. Ooh, the cavalry is going to be able to charge through. A couple of them getting clipped. And the morale is such that I think this unit is going to be going down before it can even penetrate further. Nice try, nonetheless, but just the total suppressing fire on his thin lines. He's established a bit of a foothold here, but with the cavalry in full-out retreat, that is going to be the end. His guys in the retreat may even be disrupting his guys, and definitely the the loss of morale and the panic has been contagious. So here come the rest of the forces storming across the bridge. They have been absolutely obliterated. We had a lot of guys coming around the flank, so if you wanted to preserve your life, that was definitely the time to get out of there. Anyways, that's going to be it for the battle. Hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry for the relative choppiness in certain parts. I'm not sure why that happened. I think it may have been something to do with the bridge crossings. It seemed like every time we had units crossing the bridge over here, it slowed it down. Not sure why that is, but overall, definitely a fun battle. Me and my ally brought more men to the fight and did a lot more kills. So I guess we can pop over and look at the unit stats. Hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, let me know what else you'd like to see for Napoleon, if it's going to be a scenario battle, or if it's just you want to see more of these types of things, special rules you want to see, anything like that. Anyways, that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one. Peace out.